Good morning, guys. I am Sai as SAP consultant. I have 3+ years of experience in SAP ABAP and HANA hands-on coding. I have knowledge of SD and MM flow. Let's get started. In this video, we are going to discussing about SAP ABAP syllabus. So, content. See, in introduction to SAP, we are going to discussing about SAP architecture. Now next we are going to discussing about system landscapes. Now next we are going to discussing about naming conventions, how to create a package, how to create a transport request. There are different types of package types. We'll discussing later each and every concept in-depth knowledge. Now next introduction to the write statement on system variables, how to edit masks, and how to create user settings and data types. Now next general structure of ABAP program, what type of structure is there in ABAP programming, are those things. Now next we are going to discussing about parameters and simple programs. Now next we are going to discussing about conditional statements. Now next we are going to discussing about loop statement like if and if else, like switch conditions, all those things. Now next exit and continue stop statements. Now next we are going to discussing about data dictionary. In data dictionary, most important in tables, how to create a tables, and how to create a fields, all those things. So in this table we are going to discussing about how to create a domains, how to create a data elements, how to use that data elements. Now next key fields and buffers. There are different types of tables is available, so we'll discussing all those things in the next video. Now next what is the currency field and quantity field, how to fix that currency field and quantity field. Now next we are going to discussing about structures. There are different types of structures is there, append structure and include structure, so we'll discussing that things also. Now next what is the foreign key relationship and check tables and foreign key tables, valuable tables and domain properties. Now next we are going to discussing about table maintain generators with two real-time examples. Now next we are going to discussing about views. So tables are different and views are different. Views is a like a temporary purpose. So in this view, there are different types of views is there, like we are going to discussing about database view and projection view, help view and maintenance view with two real-time examples. Now next we are going to discussing about search help. So search help means when the user clicking the particular F4, it will be displaying some pop-up information. So in this search help, how to create a search help, like a elementary search help and corrective search help and match code objects. Now next assign the search help, how to assign that particular search help into the program. Now next we are creating to the lock object. Why we are going to lock object, we'll discussing later. There are different data types is there, so we'll discussing about data types and type groups also. Now next we are going to discussing about internal table. So why we are going to internal table means, so we are unable to access the standard tables, that's why we are creating some internal table. We are calling to the standard table information to the internal table. We are going to some analytical purpose. So in internal table, how to create in internal table. In internal table variables, what is work area, what is internal table, how to create a work area, how to create internal table, we'll discuss later. Now next we are going to discussing about introduction to the selection statement, like operational to the internal table, and there are different types of absolute ways to declaring to the internal table. We'll discussing at the level of programming. Now next we are going to discussing about types of internal table. Now next most important is a debugging. Why we are going to debugging is the most important. So we identify the errors and we are checking that particular identity. We are fixing that particular errors and analytical purpose also. In debugging there are different ways is there, like a breakpoint and watch points and field values. So I will show you the clear-cut information at the level of programming. Now next we are going to discussing about OpenSQL. In OpenSQL there are different layers is there, like R/3 interface layers. Now next to OpenSQL and native SQL. What is the OpenSQL, what is the native SQL, difference between the native SQL and OpenSQL. Then now next we are going to discussing about list of OpenSQL statement, like insert, modify, update, delete. So how to insert and how to modify and how to update, how to delete, we will discussing later into the SQL programming. The more about select statement. In select statement we are going to discussing about select with joins. Now next select for all entries. Now next select single up to one row. So now next to how to create a screens and all those things. In selection screens, like a main stage of reports, so like radio buttons, check boxes and input fields and submission buttons, all those things. In selection screen, like a main stage of report, like a selection screen component, command parameters and selection option SS format. Now next variants and select text symbols messages. Now next modularization. So in modularization there are different types of techniques is there. First one is include programs. So in include programs, like a standard include programs on customized include program, how to create a customized include program. Now next we are going to discuss in function module. In function module, like import, export, changing tables, and exception and source codes. Now next we are going to creating like a subroutines. In subroutine, like a local subroutines and external subroutine passing parameters. Then there are different types of macros and class methods is there. So as well as I will give the clear cut information with real-time reports, selection screen and modularization techniques. And one more real-time example, selection screen with modularization by using the SD flow, like a sales and distribution flow. I will give the technical specifications also. Now next, in reports there are two types, like a classical report and interactive report. In classical report, like a real-time classical report with all events, I will discussing later the all events. So now next, as well as we'll give one more report also. In classical report events with the selection screen output. Now next, interactive report. In interactive report by using hide cursor. Now next, we are going to discussing about interactive report using the get cursor. Now we are going to discussing about interactive report using the at user command. Okay, so at the real-time examples with all interactive events, like menu painters. In menu painters, like a menu bar, application toolbar, and standard toolbar. In ALV reports, now next, most important ALV reports, like ABAP list view reports. So in ALV report with structures, like ALV with field catalog, ALV with layouts, ALV with field catalog merge by the function module, ALV with ALV with like a total and subtotal into the internal table content. Now next, ALV with logos and top of page, end of page, and end of list. Now next, interactive ALV with real-time interactive ALV to the calling the particular transactions. Now next, hierarchical ALV and blocked ALV. Now next, some miscellaneous topics like control break statements and lock objects, runtime analysis like SC30. Now next, performance tuning ST05. Now next, we are going to discussing about string operators also. Now next, this is actually now absolute, but some old project is there. That's why we are going to discussing about SAP scripts. So in SAP scripts, like output documentation, like what is SAP script, why SAP scripts are client dependent. Now next, there are different types of components in SAP script in Windows types and function modules using the logos, address, windows, and passing to data between the driver program into the script symbols. In script symbols, like symbols, programming symbols, and control commands like a define, address, top of, end. Now next, how to create a top up and bottoms, enum to bottoms. So new page standard text. Now next, there are different types of components there. We'll discussing later at the time of programming level. A complete real-time script development in purchase order. So copying the standard script to the modify, how to modify the standard script without changing to the driver program, how to configuration the scripting name, how to debugging to the script, and how to migrating to the script into SmartForm. So now next, present trend is SmartForm and Adobe Forms. We'll discuss all those things. So in SmartForms, like what is SmartForms, the difference between the script and SmartForm. There are different function modules there in SmartForms, and our standard function module like SSF underscore function underscore module underscore num. When we are going to the creating the SmartForm, one function module it will be generated. I will show you. So now next, there are different type of smart styles. In smart styles, like a Windows type and examples on Windows title and pages. Now next, examples of text and how to create a text, how to create a graphics, how to create an address through the passing the data between the driver program with a particular smart form with examples on templates and table conditions and program lines and alternative conditions and loops and folders. A real-time examples on invoice, how to create invoice. When we are going to shopping, they will give us some invoice, how to create that particular invoice, how to generating automatically to the invoice. Now next, debugging of the SmartForm. Now next, configuration. Now next, we are going to discussing about BDC. One of the most important concept is BDC. Now it is also absolute, but you need to know about the BDC, like a batch data communication. We have to transfer the particular data into the non-SAP to the system to SAP. So like what is a BDC, types of data transfers and various methods of data transfer, like a direct input method, how to call transaction, how to session method. Now next, LSMW, application server file. Is the LSMW most important for non-technical people, like functional people also can do that LSMW. So now next we are going to discussing about module pool program. Why we are going to module pool program? So we are creating some screens like input screens like selection screens, all those things into the module pool program. It is very easy to develop to front end. In module programming, like introduction like events in module pool program and structures of module pool program, examples on text field. So examples on input fields and buttons and boxes with the simple real-time examples on table strip, examples on table control and example on editable table control and navigation between the screens and how to create, how to call the call screens and set screens and leave screens using POV and POH events. Now next we are going to discussing about objective oriented ABAP. In objective oriented ABAP, how to create a classes, how to call that particular classes, how to create an object, how to create an interface. Now next there are different components in classes. There are the different types of interfaces, the visibility of components. Now next examples of interfaces and the static attributes, examples and method using the import and export table types and table context and its types. So as well as I will give you the real-time examples and constructions using the interfaces like alias, inheritance, abstraction classes and local classes for all the above the concepts. Now next we are going to discussing about objective oriented ALV reports, like objective oriented ALV with structures, objective oriented ALV with field catalog, objective oriented ALV with field catalog merge. Or there are different type of interfaces, objective oriented interfaces in ALV. Yeah, as well as I will give the clear cut information with real-time objective oriented interfaces with ALV with two grids in single screen, real-time objective oriented ALV with three real-time ALVs split it to the control to the real time. In real time ALV with the logos on top of page. There are different types of exits is there, like a user exit. What are the user exit, a real time examples as well as user exit. Now next we are going to discussing about customer exit. What is the customer exit? There are types of customer exits is there, like we'll give the examples. Function module exit by using call customer. Now next we are going to discussing about function module exit using to the call customer using the smart. Examples on menu exits, examples on screen exits, examples on field exit will give the clear cut information at the level of programming. Now next we are going to discussing about baddie, like a business add-on. It is one type of enhancement. Anyway, what is a baddie? Difference between the exits and baddies, like a single implementation of baddie. Now next multiple implementation of the baddie. How to filtering to the baddies and custom baddies. We'll give the three real time examples on baddies. Now next we are going to discussing about enhancement parts. So why we are going to enhancement? There are different types of standard programs and standard tables is available in our SAP system. So we need not to write from the scratch. We had just enhance that particular standard T codes, so by the client requirement. So no worry, that will do technical specification. So our functional guys will give the help. So what is an enhancement spot, the types of enhancement, what is the spot of enhancement, examples of implicit spots. Now next BAPI. So what are the bears or what is the BAPIs are, like what is BAPI? Well, there are different types of rules there. We'll discussing all those things, difference between the RFC and BAPIs, the various scenarios of BAPIs, creating the custom BAPI, a real-time example, uploading to the BAPI. So uploading, we are going to the programming level, will give the more code, but there's some standard standard BAPIs is there. So we can use that particular BAPI, then upload all the files into the non-SAP to SAP, SAP to non-SAP in real time reporting using the BAPIs only. Now next ALE IDOCs. What is ALE IDOC and types of data transfers? Now next, what is EDI? What is the IDOCs and with real-time examples of IDOCs and real-time components like IDOCs. Now next we are going to discussing about message type, how to create a message type. Now next, steps to create a segments. There are different types of segments, so we'll discussing later. So how to create a segments, how to transfer into the one client to the another client, steps to create IDOCs. Now next, segment structures into the data transfer. Now next, outbound programming on configuration settings. Now next, tables of message types and IDOC types and outbound programming process code. Now next we are going to discussing about in IDOCs, like filtering. In IDOC filtering, like a segment filtering, and custom IDOCs, like a custom IDOCs, how to create a custom IDOCs. Now next, extended IDOCs, and reducing the IDOC. Now next, changing the pointers. So a real-time scenario in the extended IDOC, like function exposes, like HD, like a sales and distribution. In sales distribution, like a business flow and T codes and tables and reports, as well as like a material management, business flow and T codes and tables and report will give the clear information at the level of explanation. So as well as I will give the FICO flow also. So SAP ABAP with real-time exposures, like ASAP methods explained with case studies and real-time business scenario. Now next, what is the support project issues, and in real time how to raise a ticket, and incident of the handling process, how to responding to the particular as a SAP ABAP consultant. Now next, we are going to discussing about preparation. So resume preparation. Now next, we are going to discussing about as well as SAP ABAP real-time interview questions as well as answers in like a technical and ABAP interview process, like a telephonic and face-to-face or a video conference. So how to crack that face-to-face and video conference. In video conference, will give the clear-cut information what type of question they are asking, and all those things. Now next, preparation of the ABAP domain, and how to SAP systems and real-time exposure concepts. Now next, so this is the content we'll discussing all those